A big hello to our Highlights Foundation family. We are so happy to have you here with us, especially today for our double feature. For those that may not know me, I'm Kat Galliano. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the social media manager here at the Highlights Foundation, joining you from Westchester, New York, on the traditional lands of the Siwanoy people. Apart from all the fun things I get to do at the Highlights Foundation, I'm also a writer and a reader. So I'm very excited to welcome our friend and faculty, Courtney Pippin-Mathur, who will be teaching the two-night mini From Pencil or Paint to Pixel, a two-night mini for beginning illustrators on May 28th and the 30th. But before we dive in, I just want to remind our viewers that joining in any Highlights Foundation sessions to do so with no hate, no harm, and no harassment of any kind. And now let's get started. So my first question is kind of like a game. So we're going to play a little game. Pretend you're on the Highlights Foundation campus and you see a bird outside your window. First, tell us what bird you see, and next, tell us what's the first thing you pick up to illustrate it.
So the bird would be a cardinal. I love cardinals. These little splashes of red. And the first thing I would pick up, it's kind of funny because at the Highlights Foundation, I love to be up in the barn, up in that upper level, looking out the big window.
Yes.
So I would either be on my iPad using Procreate or painting in my sketchbook because I try to do like equal of both. So I'm going to cheat and say it could be either one.
And that's funny that you say that one spot because that's a real popular spot. So I'm so glad. It's a personal favorite too. So that's awesome. So our second question kind of leads into right off of the first one, which says, now, is that your preferred method or medium, the Procreate slash sketchbook? Or if you're at the idea stage in a project and just getting started, what does your process look like?
So for my sketchbook, when I use my sketchbook, it's kind of painting and it's very exploratory, just kind of playing around, no pressure. But if I'm on the beginning stage of a project, then I'm going to start in Procreate on my iPad and just start sketching things out in a beginning layer.
I love that. I love that you said that when you're in the sketchbook, it's like the exploratory play phase. Mm-hmm. I feel, that speaks to me so much because I have mentioned this before. I am not an illustrator in any capacity, but I do love to use coloring books and like paint and just like kind of do it for fun. So I feel like even if you're a non-illustrator, I feel like that very much resonates. So thank you for sharing that.
I agree. Yep.
No, go ahead.
I always try when I do, I've done workshops about the journals, and it's open to writers too, because it's such a great way to just explore your creativity, as you just said. So yes, definitely.
Definitely. And what did your own path to illustration and being an author illustrator look like? We know this course specifically is for beginners, so I'm sure many of our people are wondering what that startup period looked like for you, and how different is it now?
So it started, I knew I wanted to be an author illustrator one day when I was in college. I was at the University of Texas at Austin, and I was a fine art major. And I loved to paint and explored photography and drawing, but I wasn't quite serious enough to be a fine art major. You have to go deep inside and do things that are very, at least it felt that way at the time. I wasn't quite diving with it, but then my professor came in and he was like, he held up and he said, this is what you should do if you want to write and illustrate. And it was a picture book called Monster Mama, illustrated by Stephen Gamble, who, has amazing creative illustrations. And so that I was like, boom, that's it for me. That's what I want to do. And then of course I had a baby like 9 months later. So that kind of derailed that a little bit, but I just kept working on it. And so finally I had been conversing back in the old days. I had a blog and an editor had seen my blog post. And so we'd been talking back and forth, and she asked me if I had any stories. And so I sent her one I had written, and she said no. She turned it down. But then 5 years later, out of the blue, I got an email from her saying, hey, if that story's still available, we would love to publish it.
Wow.
Yeah, so mine is definitely not a smooth linear path, which I think is totally normal and wonderful. It's been very up and down.
I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that, because I feel like perhaps, it could have been so super soul crushing at the moment when they said, no, it's not for us. but perhaps it just wasn't, the market wasn't right for that, or it just wasn't the time. But the fact that that story stuck with her, and that, 5 years later came back and was like, hey, still thinking about that story. Is it still available? So that sort of gives hope to anyone to just query, just get it out there, because it might not be right for that specific agent or publishing house, but it might just not be the time for it. So
Yeah.
just send it out there.
Exactly. Publishing is so much a game of time and just finding the right editor at the right time. And like you said, who needs this particular story? So definitely. That's why I'm like, don't give up. You got to keep going. You got to keep trying.
Gotta keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
So just, I'm going to go a little rogue here and ask you just a personal question. But when you're writing and or illustrating, what's that process like for you when you're either writing specifically for something and or illustrating specifically for something, or doing both for a project? Does your sort of process kind of vary for all those three different parts?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So I'll give you an example. This is a little bit of a sneak peek of I had an editor request a story based on an illustration, which I've never had that before. And so I'm like, woo! So for that one, I'm very focused on the text, right? And my agent and I have been going back and forth for months, my friends for months. It's been about 6 months just so we can get it perfect before we send it to this editor, because this is like a dream editor of mine. So for that one, I'm at my computer or my iPad typing all the time, right? Just really focus on the writer side of my brain. But when I'm trying to come up with ideas on my own, I'm usually sketching or playing around in my notebook, like I mentioned, because I find there I'm less intimidated. When I'm writing, I'm very
Mm-hmm.
much a path. So I find that I have to sit down and just kind of open myself to inspiration. And sometimes, a thought will hit right then, but it's usually like random, like when I'm driving somewhere days later. But I have to open the creativity well,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, what I tell my students, I'm like, you have to sit down and open your brain door, like visualize opening your door to inspiration and ideas. And eventually, you'll get hit with one.
Oh, I love that. I love that you use that example of like opening the door, because I have a different process where it's like I light a
Yeah.
candle and that's sort of my opening the door. So I love the different visuals that we can use because you have to honor that process. You can't, I mean, I know I can't, maybe you can't either, but I can't just like bust out words. Like I have to like set the scene for myself to allow that like spark to come through.
Have like and I have a corner of a room, and so I tell people, you just have to have your little space. It can be
Hmm.
anything. To have, like, I would go take my kids to the park, but I would sit on the bench and that would be my space. You set the
Yes.
intention and then the ideas would follow. So yeah, I love the candle idea. I do that sometimes too, especially on dreary days. It's just such a nice,
Yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's all my questions for you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so. Although I would love to see anybody come join the mini in May. It'd be great. And it's definitely for beginners and just an intro to Kidlit and the different tools that a lot of different contemporary illustrators use, as well as past favorites. And then I will show on the second day, we'll go into Procreate, which is what I've illustrated my last 2 books with. And I'll give you some tips for the, Procreate and how to get started in it, because it's kind of overwhelming. And then I believe my art director, Aram, who is wonderful and lovely, will be joining us on the second day too to give us tips. So that's always great.
There you go, people. You heard it here first. Lots of information, and we're going to have an art director who's Courtney's art director, I believe, visit on night 2. So if you'd like to learn more from Courtney and our special guest, Aram Kim, please make sure to sign up from Pencil or Paint to Pixel, a 2-night mini for beginning illustrators. You can register on our website at highlightsfoundation.org. And lastly, you can purchase Courtney's books and Aram's books on our virtual bookshop powered by bookshop.org. Thank you so much, Courtney, for chatting with us today, and can't wait to see you online in May.
Thank you. Lovely. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Courtney.